Excellent connection. Let's make sure the audio is coming through. Since I've been live for 10 seconds with no video. There we go. Do we have anything? I can hear something in the monitors. Yeah, that's beautiful. Right, then I can take my headphones off. Let them sit in the corner, make a bit of noise, so I hear if the audio drops out. And let's bring the chat up somewhere. Should have done that before. Pop out chat, there we go. Right, Robin Vandenide is there. Hello. So this is a anonymous mystery box out of a Volvo V50 from, I have no idea when, but this relay says 2006, so I'm going to assume it's from 2006. And it has got an issue where it will not recognize the key. It'll tell the driver somehow that the key is wrong, I'm being stolen, and I'm not going to go anywhere. And they've brought it to some tech, and the tech has done that to the wiring, and it started working a bit, and then it stops working again. They've apparently taken this box apart, so it's doable. It can be disassembled. I can see some witness marks there. And I'm hoping that we're just going to find bad soldering on some of these connectors. I think it was one of these guys that actually was causing the issue, or rather that was showing response when they wiggled it about. So let's just get in there. I have no idea what we're getting into. Usually when I do these streams, I take a sneak peek of a thing first, so I have an idea if it's just going to be a big boring disappointment, but in this case I really have no clue. Haven't touched it. Robin Vandenide says percussive maintenance. Well, the percussive maintenance didn't work. It was a ripping and tearing of wires. Get magnetized. Very suggestive. And it won't work. Okay. So I'm assuming there's some way of getting inside this thing. It seems to be just mostly snapped together. David Blastrands in the chat saying hello. Hello there, David. Yeah, we'll have some big snaps along the edge here. The art of a blade. I've been studying it. I really do feel like a ninja when I just get my box cutter blades out and then we're inside. So there are the innards, and we cannot see any connectors. Well, we can see some board-to-board interconnect. Oh no. Oh no, this is going to be horrible. It's a sandwich, and all these suspicious connectors are soldered between the boards. Oh, Jesus Christ, this is going to be hell. And I'm assuming all these fuses and both relays are just mounted on straight on soldered in mounts, so I'm going to have to take a picture of these and then put them back in the correct order, which would be much easier to do if I hadn't misplaced the workshop camera. There it is. You always take a few pictures before you start. Or something like this, just in case something goes wrong. Or in this case, because I guarantee we need to get every single fuse out of this thing. I guarantee it. If we press on that, yeah, I can see the board flexing, but it's attached with something. Yeah, since you can see the double boards in there, there's no way we're not going to have to rip all the fuses. Let's try and be clever about it and put them in order to one side. I need this thing. The exciting part of doing a job like this. Psyche Bugger's in the chat saying good evening. Good evening, Psyche Bugger. We need our fuses to be straight. I am very intolerant towards fuses. Jesus, how many are there? We have more than 30 centimeters of fuses already. Now we're not even halfway there. Time for row number 2. At least they're all installed, so we don't have to think about having unpopulated spaces in between them. That would have just make everything even better. Rose Electronics is in the chat saying hello. Hello there, Rose Electronics. Van Denied says, Volvo fix please. Volvo would never fix this. They would gladly sell you a new one for 1 billion euros. I'm sure you'd have to get a new one with a new key and maybe even a new ignition lock. So I told the customer this was maybe going to be 100 euros, but now that I see the construction, it's definitely going to be more than that, so I hope he's prepared to spend a bit on his vehicle. It's a V50, I think they're rather expensive, so I'm assuming he's not going to have too big a problem with that. Okay. You're locked in. That's not what it looks like, I promise. Right, relays. This feels good. It's at least coming apart. Come on. There we go. So much soldered in rubbish. This is going to be such an incredible pain if these connectors are the problem. Because look at this construction. They're soldered in between there, so we're going to have to desolder every single one of these. This might not even be a plated through board. At least some of these connectors are definitely not installed in plated through holes. Sarkebugger says he has an old V70. Now the parts are expensive. If it's still running, you are going to have your instrument cluster repaired sooner or later. We usually do it for 180 euros because you need to fix every single solder joint. Every single one. Are these soldered in relays? That's fair enough. So something I really don't like to see is exactly this. If we have a close look down there, you can see that there's no metal inside that hole. So unless these holes are special, that means that this is the type of dual layer PCB where they just basically slap two PCBs together and they don't think about what's between the layers. That means that it's going to be very unreliable. Okay, Wills asks, what year is the Volvo? I have no idea, but the part said 2006, so I'm assuming that. Now I wonder if we can get a look in between here to just have a gander of these suspect connectors. Let's see, the really suspect ones are... they look to be completely impossible to see. There's not much to be made out there. You're not missing anything of a picture. They do seem to be soldered on both sides, meaning that we can actually rip off this plastic and maybe rework them from the top of the board. Maybe. Let's try and blade one of these guys off ever so slightly, and let's take a picture. And let's put this camera on charge so it doesn't actually die on me. It has the original battery from like 2008. So I'd rather not gamble when the indicator goes down to 1 bar. Right, let the blading begin. Let's see what we can do. Ooh, that feels terrible. Ah, this plastic. This plastic is telling me that it's not gonna come. It's telling me that it wants to stay right where it is. Yeah, that's not happening. We're at best we're gonna damage something. Now we could maybe, if we're really ugly, manage to slip a soldering iron underneath the plastic and resolder while it's in place. Oh man, why do they have to do this sandwich design? It's horrifying. I'm actually not seeing any real signs of solder joint failure, which is a bit curious. Oh, am I gonna have to scratch that? The big connectors are looking a bit crusty, but they're not looking horrible. They're looking much better than I would expect. Yeah, it is crusty. It's definitely crusty in there. Here's one of those white connectors that we can actually see. Let's see if we can make anything out. This guy actually looks pretty fine, although do we have one sad thing in there? Well, that's a nice bend. We do have a suspected solder joint failure in there. It could be a crack, but I'm really not sure. It's very difficult to see at this angle. Put the board interconnects look fine. Ah. I really want to try and lift one of these plastic things up, because I think that might still be our best option. Stupid camera. Let me zoom. If we are very careful, we might be able to very slowly screwdriver it up. ZX8401 asks, what's wrong with it? It won't recognize the key every time. It'll tell the owner that it's stolen. This is just getting a screwdriver underneath there without destroying the layers or destroying the tracks running closed it is just basically impossible. It's attached too well to a plastic. Which is really not what we want to see. What's that? Some weird hand-soldered thing, might be for programming. Hello there. I think we have solder joint failure here. Yes. Yes, we do. Yeah, you're not going to see it on a microscope. The camera's too shitty, but there's clear-cut solder joint failure there. A visible crack. And there's another visible crack. I just don't want to undo every single finger in around this. It's just, oh, it's not going to happen. And God knows how many pins are in the middle. Not that many. The entire thing is potted as well. Well, it's conformally located, rather. Is the sound muffled, someone says? Is the sound still muffled? It could be muffled. Let me check. Hello? It sounds pretty good to me. But we can turn the gain up a bit. Like that, maybe? Let me know if it's clipping. Let me know if it's clipping. Oh, it is clipping, I can see it. Yeah. ZX8401 says, put your soldering iron horizontal on the top of the pins and warm them up, then lever the plastic up. I'm not sure what that would give us. We also can't really put any solder like above the plastic because it has to accept a connector, so we don't want to make a mess of it. Though perhaps if we just heat it up, we might be able to get a bit of softness in the plastic. It probably doesn't matter if we ruin the plastic. That's not a big concern, since the pins are going to be reasonably easy to straighten up anyway. So let's get some temperature on there. With a terrible hot air station from like 2010. It could also be stuck on the conformal coating actually. I have a hot air set to about 300 degrees or so. I'm just gonna heat it until the plastic like starts going a bit funny on me. Something like that. Let's see if that's going to be any easier to get up. That feels as if it's made absolutely no difference. Oh, that's a bent pin. No worries though. It can take it. Yeah, this plastic is it's not going to survive tonight. We need to destroy it. So my plan is to get the Dremel out, do a swing and a swing very carefully so we don't cut any traces, and then we can resolder the pins from above. It's rather reasonable to do that since we know there are solder joint failures on those. We saw it under a microscope. So we're gonna have to put some little cutting thing on the Dremel. I just remembered that I'm really lazy, so I broke the disc the last time I used this and I didn't put a new one on. We don't need to advertise you. Go away, you're a terrible tool. Exciting Dremel bit changing action. We don't need the safety goggles quite yet. There's the thing. That's the thing that you put on the thing to do the thing. I think there's a 0.8mm disc. It's good. The last one I had on was 0.4, and that would have been way too thin for this job. I wanted a bit of a chungus one. Now this is probably going to be incredibly loud for you guys as well. So I think I'm going to mute the microphone while I do this. It's just going to be better for everyone. If I can figure out how to mute this thing. This is not as easy as it seems, because our little cutting tool doesn't have enough diameter to actually get down there. It hits the pins. So that's rather annoying. There's no way to use one of these discs to cut that far down, and I don't have any bigger ones. The technique would work if we had a bigger disc. I guess we can't cut this either. No, it's too hard. It's glass fiber reinforced. For what it's worth, they've used a very high quality connector. Are we really going to have to desolder the entire thing? And it's just questionable if it's even worth it to undo all of these conformally coated joints. It's going to take over an hour just to desolder the thing. we could try just desoldering the entire thing with hot air, but that runs the risk of damaging the board. Nibbling at it with pliers, I don't think it's going to do the job because we're going to damage the pins. And I'm tired of that pin I accidentally bent, so let's meditate for a moment and bend that back. There we go. Now it's at least as straight as when we got it. Jasper Breel says heat up the X-Acto blade to melt off the plastic. That could actually be a good idea, just hot cutting it. And I used to have like a little hot wire cutter. I wish I still had that. Let's put the Dremel away, at least that's going to be completely worthless. Undremelable. Fluffy Floof is in the chat saying, "Greeting, fellow humans." You're human? That's disgusting. No humans allowed. Let's try putting the blade on there and just heating the blade, and maybe we'll be able to cut the plastic. Now this is some very high quality plastic, so I question how well it's going to work, but I think it might be our best bet right now. Rather hot 350C on the hot air gun. And let's not use our fingers to hold the 350-degree piece of metal. That's not going to go well. suspect that there might be too much glass fiber in that plastic for it to actually work. Let's try with a smaller blade. I think that one might be a bit too chungus. The plastic is doing something. It's getting brown and sort of melty. I think I actually have a metal knife. That might be the ticket. We are cutting it. We actually are cutting it. We're also sort of just melting everything. So that's what it took to strip off one tiny slice of plastic. But it did work. Let's do the other side of that connection and then we'll have a look at the solder joint. You don't want to waste all this heat. It's heavily glass fibre reinforced. So even though the plastic goes all melted, it's still holding together rather well. There's no commentary because I'm incredibly focused. This is difficult to do without stabbing something. Yeah, no. Dragging the blade, not a good idea. I think we might actually be desoldering the connector while we're doing this. Okay, that's the other side. So it actually worked. So thank you, Jasper. This was a good idea. If we haven't ruined the board, that is. There's a lot less area for the plastic to grip onto the metal pins now. We might actually have a chance of getting it off. And, you know, you can't finish before you get it off. we have definitely either desoldered or pulled up at a couple of the pins. So I wonder if it's because the solder joint has failed, or because we have actually gotten the board hot enough to slightly melt the solder. Let's have a look. That actually looks more like melty solder. And it looks like we have a pretty good access, even without getting the middle plastic bit off. Yeah. So given how temperature tolerant this plastic is, I think we're going to hand resolder this connector. And the other one we'll just try and desolder with hot air. And wow, that's a solder joint failure if I ever saw one. Ah, that's a jackpot. That's exactly what I want to see. That means we haven't been wasting our time. Let's see if I can get you guys a better shot. Right there. We can see that we have slightly melted the solder joint. Ah, that looks perfect on my terrible camera. But that's just because the camera is too bad. There's a very clear heat cycle crack on that. It's just not going to show up on the bad camera. Give me money so I can buy a better one. But yeah, I think we'll just resolder this. Now it's a bit annoying because a couple of the pins are actually sort of at a wonky angle now because I was pulling at them. I wonder if we can maybe just use the hot air to get them flat again. I just don't want to solder the connector on like wonky. Oh well, it's perfectly viable to hot air desolder this connector. Perfectly viable. At quite low temp as well. I don't want to get this one off now because it's not going to be attached very well to the plastic. So it's going to be a pain getting back. So we'll hand desolder this one. Then the other one will actually hot air off completely, evacuate the holes and fix. Oh god, what tip do I have on? I have a right tip on the soldering on. I'll go decently hot on this because I want to flow the bottom side as well, because I know there are joints on the bottom side that we can't really access at all, so we just need to reflow them. Oh no. Stupid flux tube was having some problems with flow. The hot, rather long soldering time, so the heat has a chance to move to the bottom joint as well. We can't get any flux on it, And this is not a plated through board, so it's just horrible. We're basically just hoping that it gets desoldered properly. There's no way to tell. I can see that the pins are getting loose, so they actually are melting the joints on both sides of the board, which is what we want. So that's one row. Let's do the other. This one's going to be a bit more annoying to access because we have the other connector there, but we'll make do. This microscope camera is just so incredibly bad. This end, the end that's more towards the inside of the board, towards the center of the board, seems to have more damage to the solder joints than the other. There we go, that's one. So now we're going to try and just hot air desolder the other connector. Because we actually managed to melt the solder, our first one, by just heating it up. So I think we might be able to do it quite successfully. By just heating on forever. We do have quite a bit of thermal area, like a heat sink in the pins, so we can heat the pins quite efficiently. I can see the tin coating of the pins actually melting. We want some heat into the board, but not too much. We are lifting it. Haha, look at that. Ah, that's lovely. That went much better than I expected. Now I can see that it actually is plated through here. It's just not in the edges. Oh wow. Look at that. So now I can actually have a bit of a closer look. Any cracks in the solder joints are likely to be gone or completely masked since we actually melted it now. But sometimes you can see evidence of cracking. I don't think we're going to see anything though. No, there's nothing real to comment on, I don't think. Maybe. I'm not going to say anything about these. They're too masked by melting the solder. Now the annoying bit is I should probably change tips on this thing. Now that might be a problem because it's kind of sort of broken and I need to buy a new one. I want a precision tip on this. Like that. So the problem with the B1002A is the thermal expansion coefficient of this thing and the heater inside are different. Ooh. This is all twisting around in a way it really should not. We are not changing tips on that, because if I do that I'm going to twist the heater off and I'd rather not. Oh, it's not even turned on. Let's give it one more shot if I really... Nah. No, I can see on this thing it's just... It's never gonna come off. I just need to get off my lazy bum and order a new handle. It's so annoying ordering. I get these from pcbsoldering.co.uk and the web shop doesn't handle exports properly, so I have to mail the order in every time and pay the invoice and bloody blah. It's just such a bother. So while we're waiting for that to heat up, we can perhaps start dealing with... What the hell is this? What's this? There's solder spray on the plastic. What on earth would cause that? Solder spray. What an odd thing. Never seen that before. Robin van den, I'd say. They don't handle it properly. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Oh, goopy. Now I wonder if we can, like, get the plastic to just sort of slide up ever so slightly along this with some minor use of force. I don't mind the plastic being there, I just need it to be slightly higher up so I can access it to solder it without making the connector sit too much higher. But I don't think this is actually going. And this is not going to move. So we'll just have to mount this connector ever so slightly higher up while we put it back so we can access the solder. So now we cue angry cow noises. Because it's time to desolder. With the completely wrong tip. Oh, we can make it work. When I noticed this thing was about to start failing on me, I shouldn't have put the biggest tip I have on it. I should have put a medium tip. That works for most things. Oh well. I think it might be easier to do this two-handed. Yes, it is. SK shows up and says, "Hello FF and all." Hello SK. I hope you're having a nice night. So if you're just tuning in, we are working on a Volvo Magic white box which has a problem with intermittent connection in a couple of connectors, and we have thus far really brutalized one of them, and we've dismounted the other one. Right now we are evacuating the solder holes, and then we're going to try and solder it back on from the wrong side of the board, because this thing is basically impossible to disassemble. Now this hole really does not want to get evacuated. There we go. I think the desoldering pump might be getting a bit dry. There we go. Some fresh solder on. That was more meaty suck. Okay, that's starting to look mostly evacuated. You take a look under the microscope. I can see there's some solder down at the bottom there still, but we're going to have to deal with that. All in all, I think that's pretty okay. So now I'm going to clean this up a bit, because I want to get all the crap solder flux residue off of here. Then I'm going to put a bit of flux on there and shove the new connector in, shove the connector back. That way we actually get a bit of flux pushed through the board, so it can work on the other side, even though we can't actually get any fresh tin to really go down there. We can get some flux. Like so. We can clean this connector up just a bit, because there's a bunch of melty plastic on it. It's just going to get in the way. It actually turns out to be basically impossible to clean without heating up again, so we'll just poke it on there. And we'll do it under the microscope. Because we need to have it mounted and just ever so slightly off of the board, or it's going to be unsolderable. So that's it completely down. Now we need to space it up ever so slightly. Just enough to gain access with a soldering iron underneath. And I think that's just about high enough. It's still penetrating all the way to the other side of the board, so it's not going to have problems getting soldered. Yeah, this is going to be pretty okay. No, I have no idea how well I'm going to be able to solder this, so you guys get to see anything. But I promise I'll try. I think I'm gonna go down to really thin solder for this, because the fat one is just annoying to really get in there. So we're going to 0.38 millimeter, about half the thickness of the previous stuff. Two more to go, then there's just one more entire row, which is going to be more difficult to access. There we go. K. Wells says, while watching you do this, my mail was delivered and one piece came from quite near you, I believe. Well, that would make sense. I did send you some mail. Ah, how the hell are we gonna access this? God. There's like a bunch of microscope in the way. This is absolutely proper. This is proper posture. Ah. Man, I wanna get it to that camera, that's where all the action is. Oh, look at the beauty. Okay, here we go. The extraction fan is not doing a good job. My lungs. Ah, this is terrible. Breathe, solder, breathe, solder. How many joints can you get in one breath? I want to clean my iron, but I can't take my eyes off a microscope or this entire jig falls apart, so I have to deal with a dirty, dirty rod. Five more to go. I can see some of these traces have run very hot. It takes all the stupid thing I need to clean the eye and I can't. I have no idea what I'm doing. I cannot see my soldering iron, but it's making hissing noises. I think that's good. Did I actually get any dirt off? Ah, yes. We're fine now. Okay. Okay, that's the entire. That's the entire connector. Oh. That's terrible. My nose is killing me. Oh, that's bad for my lungs. I just smoked like 50 joints on video. Oh man. That was absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. And the connector is definitely not 100% straight, but oh well. Let's be tolerant. So those guys really should be soldered in now. Now, the really annoying part is we should be doing like a bunch of these. Because when one goes, the rest will soon follow. But I don't feel like repeating that. I don't think the customer wants to pay for that. Fluffy floof this is. Hashcore solder is the best. Okay, we have some sort of date on this thing here. 26/09/05. So probably a 2006 model vehicle. So I'm just inspecting what I can see for more failures. There will be other bad solder joints on this thing. There's no question about it. Especially on this board, because it's a single, well, it seems to be a dual layer non-plated through board. The one with the ICs seems to be actually plated through. I think we should actually just leave this right now and let the customer test it. Because we are already gonna be over budget on this, and if he gets it running, I'm guessing he's gonna be fine with that. The proper way to do it is to redo fucking everything. Spade plugs on single layer boards, that shouldn't be allowed. They fall off even if they have plated through holes. Is that contamination or cracking? Contamination. Thankfully the fuse holders at least look pretty okay. So sometimes they actually get that. What? Hang on, what are we looking at here? What have I just stumbled upon? What have we here? What have we here? Someone's been messing with this. It looks factory. But it also looks absolutely fucking horrific. Like, what? What is that? What are we looking at? It is soldered, but it's like barely soldered. Like that. That's the tiniest little hint of a solder joint I ever saw. Is that actually supposed to be connected, or is it supposed to be disconnected? Let's do a little beep. I'm proving on resistor, going to... It's supposed to be connected, or rather it is connected now, so let's fix that horrifying mess. Sheesh. That's so bad. That's absolutely horrible. Why have they done this? Because there's conformal coating there, where it isn't supposed to be conformal coating. There we go. Now that's actually soldered. Conformal coating, not very good solder. Also there's a big piece of solder just like floating about. So sometimes on Volvos, these do like to fall off. So let's have a look. This IC seems fine. Yeah, the big IC is not falling off. That's good. We don't have to think about it. I imagine the other one's not going to be falling off either. Power devices, are they falling off? It's looking pretty alright. Have we blown any passive stuff around the connectors skyward? I don't think so. This is generally looking pretty okay. Aside from the connectors. Rose Electronics asks, still going on? Yes, so we found bad solder joints on the suspect connectors. We resoldered them. One better than the other perhaps. And now we're just inspecting the board. If there are any other faults going on, which might need our attention. But since this stupid thing is built in the way it's built, it's very difficult to actually do anything without going through the ridiculous efforts of desoldering the connectors like we already did. So I think we're actually going to put this back together now and give it back to the customer. Let him test it first. And if it doesn't work, we'll go like, hey, this is going to take a shit ton of work. Maybe I'll give you a discount and you can just go find another thing so I don't have to see it again. Because this thing is so horrible. Also, this capacitor is completely dented. I don't think that's my fault. That's usually not a problem though. Rightio, so at least reassembly is quick enough since I haven't managed to brush fuses to hell. They're still where they're supposed to be. So let's see how the connectors actually do fit through the holes they're supposed to fit through, so that's nice. Let's straighten a couple of pins out ever so slightly. That's fine. Snap. This is where we start screwing around. Thank you, I'll be here all night. Save on the LEDs. Now here IKEA is actually not selling these anymore. So we need to conserve their LEDs so we never have to replace them. Okay, it was in this orientation, I believe, when we ripped the fuses. Yes, because we have fewer in the row towards me. So we've all experienced exciting fuse ripping fun times. Now it's time for exciting fuse reinstallation fun times. Yay! If I were really proper, I'd put some booze on these before shoving them in, but I'm just not gonna bother. You know what, let's just fucking bulk booze them. I'm sure that's better than nothing. This makes me think of a similar issue I have with my old Porsche 205, where there's a similar sort of fuse relay box mounted under the steering column, and the horn usually doesn't work. But then you open the hinged thing that this is installed on, you do this, and then the horn works again. So every time it's time for an inspection of a vehicle, I have to go under the dashboard, do the and then when they test the horn, it works. It's very reliable. I've been doing that for almost 10 years. Like, it started almost the moment I got that car, and that was 10 years ago. And let's booze these. Check out that technique. Fuse installation, speed running. I feel like a factory worker. Damn it. There we go. Väinö Peltonen says, hyvin videoitu, mielenkiintoista katsottavaa. I don't speak a word of Finnish. Katsottavaa, I imagine, means watch, something, something, watch. Booze everything. And hyvin videoitu, I guess, good video? Mielenkiintoista. Mielen, is that like me, mine? Some sort of minu? Sorry man, I don't speak Finnish. I mean, come on, I'm working on a Swedish car. So, that's it. I'm going to call the customer, let him try it out, and if it works, everyone's happy. If it doesn't work, then we all have a big problem on our hands, because getting to the rest of the solder joints in this thing is just going to be painful. Painful for me, expensive for him. So with that, I think we're done for tonight. We've been going, oh Jesus Christ, 1 hour 40 minutes. Well, I actually quoted him 2 hours, but I expected to be able to resolder a lot more stuff than this. So we're within budget, at least. So I'm going to sign off. You all have lovely days, evenings, mornings, nights, whatever have you, and I'll see you around at some point. Cheerio.